Hi, everyone. Welcome to music. We are continuing to learn about music of the 20th century, and today we will talk about some musical technology and inventions of the 1990s. One musical invention of this decade, and you've probably heard it, it's still very popular today, is called Auto-Tune. Auto-Tune is an audio processor introduced in 1997 by Antares Audio Technologies. It measures and alters pitch in vocal and instrumental recordings and performances. It was originally intended to disguise or correct off key notes, but producers eventually began to use autotune as an effect to purposely distort vocals. So it started out as a way to fix wrong notes, but it can also just be used to make voices or instruments sound cool. Here's a little sample. This is from a song by Cher, and if you know Cher, you know she doesn't need help hitting the right notes, so this was really just used to change the sound of her voice. And this song came out in 1998, so this was one of the first uses of autotune in popular music. Let's listen for a minute. No matter how hard I try, you keep pushing me aside, and I can't break through. Hear how it changed her voice? There's no talking to you. Another invention of the 90s is the MP3 player. You might think the iPod was the first MP3 player, but it wasn't. A few years before the iPod was released, a small South Korean company called Seihan developed the MP-Man F10 MP3 player in 1997. It had 64 megabytes of memory, which at the time was enough to hold 18 songs. And this was the first device sold to ever approach music in this way. Think about the other ways that people listened to music before this, right? We had records, 8 tracks, tapes, CDs. This was really a whole new medium for listening to music. And the way to get your MP3s to put on your MP3 player was file sharing sites, another invention of the 90s. Napster was one of the most popular. It was founded in 1999 as a peer-to-peer file sharing internet software. It focused on sharing digital audio files, mostly songs, in the MP3 format. So you could download from Napster and put it on your MP3 player and then take it to go wherever you're going while you're listening to music. As the software became popular, the company ran into legal difficulties over copyright infringement, and Napster was famously sued by the band Metallica in 1999. Eventually, Napster and similar sites like LimeWire and Kazaa had to change their model to avoid stealing music. That was the problem. Singers and songwriters weren't getting paid for the songs that were shared. And Napster still exists, but it's now a paid streaming service similar to Spotify or Pandora. Some other inventions of the 90s, just for fun. The Google search engine. I mean, how many times a day do we use the Google search engine? That was a very important invention. Text messaging and instant messaging. Before that, all you could do with your phone was call people. Isn't that crazy? Lots of video game systems were invented in this decade: PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and the portable Game Boy. Tickle Me Elmo was from the 90s. It was a huge toy. Everybody wanted to buy it for Christmas in the 90s. DVDs were also invented in this decade as a different way to watch movies. And also the Toyota Prius, the world's first mass-produced gasoline-electric hybrid car. All right, let's listen to some more top songs of the 90s. Again, we're going to listen to 2 songs, and this week we will focus on contemporary R&B songs. We talked a little bit in the 80s that R&B can be a general term for lots of different styles, but it can also be its own style. So contemporary R&B in the 90s sounded similar to R&B of the 80s, using electronic beats combined with elements of hip-hop, soul, and funk. Boyz II Men and Mariah Carey were 2 incredibly popular R&B acts in the 90s, and they worked together to record the song One Sweet Day, which became the longest-running #1 hit in Hot 100 history. And that song is a choice if you want to listen to that song. And hip-hop, which we learned about in the 70s and 80s, became a mainstream musical genre in 1990, a best-selling genre by the mid-90s, and the top-selling style in 1999 with 81 million CDs sold. So choose one song from each slide, and again, while you listen, try to identify the mood or the feeling of each song and choose which song you like the best.